Hello everyone and welcome to today's 6th grade ELA lesson. I created a PowerPoint that I am going to share with you. And our topic for today is analogies. So we're going to be talking about 3 particular analogies. Those are cause effect, part whole, and item category. Okay, so first we're going to have a vocabulary review and I'm going to give some examples of each analogy. Next we're going to play a game where it's guess which word relationship. Next, we're going to complete some analogies, and finally, we will recap and conclude the lesson. So for the materials, you will need paper and pencil. So our I can statement, which is kind of like our goal for the lesson, is I can distinguish among the different types of word relationships, such as cause and effect, part whole, and item category relationships. Okay, so for our vocabulary, our first word is an analogy because all 3 of these are kind of like analogies. And an analogy compares one idea, person, concept, etc. to another. So basically, an analogy is a comparison. So our first analogy is the cause effect. And so it's kind of because of something, this happened. Or since this happened, that happened as a result. That kind of thing. That's a cause effect. All right, the next analogy is part whole. So for example, sand is to beach. So sand is like a small part of an entire beach. Just as water is to ocean. So water is a small part of like the entire ocean. So again, part to whole. Then the last analogy is item category. So for example, guinea pig is a mammal just as lizard is a reptile. So basically, guinea pig falls under the category of mammals, just as lizard falls under the category of reptiles. So that's kind of what item category analogy is all about. Okay, so there are some parts of a word analogy that is good to know. So whenever you see a colon, that means is to. Whenever you see 2 colons, that means as or just like. So I have an example here. So we have car, and then we have this colon here, and then 4 wheels. So we know that a colon means is to. So this would read car is to 4 wheels. So car is to 4 wheels. Then we have a double colon, which means as, just like. So just as bicycle is to 2 wheels. So again, this right here means car is to 4 wheels, just as bicycle is to 2 wheels. So here they're comparing, they're making that analogy, that comparison between car and bicycle by saying that car is to 4 wheels, meaning that a car has 4 wheels, just as a bicycle has 2 wheels. So again, comparing bicycle and car. Okay. So the first analogy that we're going to dive a little deeper into is cause and effect. So basically, examples of cause and effect show how one thing can affect another. And again, it uses those keywords of because, as a result, since, those kinds of things. So for example, Tim broke his arm. The doctor put it in a cast. That's an example of cause and effect because the doctor put Tim's arm in a cast because Tim had broken his arm. So basically, the cause would be that Tim broke his arm, and because Tim broke his arm, the effect is that the doctor put Tim's arm in a cast. So again, that's a cause effect. Okay, now our next word relationship is going to be the part whole relationship. Remember that an analogy is going to describe the relationships between words. So it's kind of going to show how those words compare, make a comparison. So in part whole analogies, the first term, so for example, sand, is part of the second term, beach. So it's kind of like beach is the bigger picture and sand is the smaller picture. Sand is the part and beach is the whole. And then the third term, so water in this case, is part of the fourth ocean. So water is a part of the bigger ocean. So again, sand is to beach, just as water is to ocean. Our last analogy that we'll discuss for this lesson is the item category analogy. So for item to category analogies, one word names something that falls into the group or the broader topic that's named by the other word. So for example, forks are to silverware just as cats are to animals. So basically what that means is forks is one of the items that can be found in the larger picture, the larger category of silverware. Just as cats, again, one item, one small item, is to animals or are to animals. So basically animals gives the group the broader topic, the larger picture. That's why forks are to silverware, just as cats are to animals. So again, the second and fourth words are going to be the broader topic, like that broader group. And the first and third words are going to be kind of like a subcategory, you could call it, just like one item. So forks, small picture, are to silverware, large picture, just as cats, small picture, are to animals, large picture. That's what the item category one is. So now we're going to have some guided practice. So I'm going to help you with this just to kind of model how it's shown. So for our activity, guess the word relationship, I will read each analogy, and then we're going to decide whether this analogy is a cause-effect relationship, meaning that one thing was caused by something else, or whether it's a part-whole relationship, or whether it's an item category relationship where it falls within the broader category. Okay, so our analogy is dogs are to animals just as milk is to a beverage. So dogs are to animals just as milk is to a beverage. So, do you think this is a cause-effect relationship, a part-whole relationship, or an item category relationship? So I'm going to model this first one. This one is going to be an item category relationship, and the reason for that is because dogs fall under the larger category of animals, just as milk falls under the larger category of a beverage. So that's why this one is item category. Let's try another one together. Water is formed when two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom combine. Again, water is formed when two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom combine. So, is this analogy or is this word relationship going to be a cause-effect, a part-whole, or an item category? And for this one, it is going to be a cause-effect because the effect is that water is formed, and what caused that water to be formed? The cause was the two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atom combining. So this one is going to be a cause-effect. All right, time for our next one. Sand is to beach just as water is to ocean. Again, sand is to beach just as water is to ocean. Okay, so for this one, let's look at the options one at a time. So would this one be a cause-effect where one thing causes another thing? It doesn't look like it really would. So we'll look at our second option, part-whole. So is our first word a part of the second word? Sand is a part of beach, just as water is a part of ocean? That looks like that one could be correct. Let's look at the other one. Item category. So is a category beach or is a category ocean in relationship to sand and water? Not so much. So I would say that we should go with our second option, part-whole, because sand is a part of beach, just as water is a part of the whole ocean. That's why this analogy will be a part-whole analogy. All right, let's try this one. Hammer is to tool, just as pizza is to food. Again, hammer is to tool, just as pizza is to food. Is this going to be a cause-effect relationship where one thing causes another thing? Will it be a part-whole relationship where a hammer is part of a tool and pizza is part of a food? Or will it be an item category relationship where hammer falls under the category of tool and pizza falls under the category of food? What do you think? If you said that this analogy is an item category analogy, you are correct, because hammer falls under the category of tool and pizza falls under the category of food. Awesome. Let's try our next one. Since the electricity went out for most of the day, the ice cream in the freezer melted. So is this going to be a cause effect, a part whole, or an item category relationship? So again, is one thing causing another thing? Or is it part of the whole? Or is it falling under a larger category? If you said that it's a cause-effect relationship, you are correct. Since the electricity went out for most of the day, the ice cream in the freezer melted. So we have our cause. Again, looking at our keywords, it's since, or if we had as a result or because, those would kind of all clue us into the fact that this is a cause-effect relationship. So here we have since. Since the electricity went out for most of the day, so that's our cause. Then our effect from that cause is the ice cream in the freezer melted. So because the electricity went out, our cause, the ice cream melted. That's our effect. Okay, so now I'm going to let you try some of these on your own. All right, so on your piece of paper, you can just write the number 1, and then you're going to write down whichever word relationship you think best fits this sentence. The weather forecast called for rain, so he took his umbrella. Again, the weather forecast called for rain, so he took his umbrella. So on your piece of paper, what I want you to do after writing the number 1 is to write either cause effect, or part whole, or item category, whichever you think that this word relationship best represents. So you'll be writing down just one of these options. All right, so after you're all done with that, let's check our work. So this one will be a cause effect. And looking at this, we can kind of tell why. So the weather forecast called for rain, so that's our cause. So he took his umbrella, which is our effect. So basically he took out his umbrella because the weather forecast called for rain. So we can see that that's kind of a cause-effect relationship. Let's try another one. Guitar is to instrument just as state is to country. Again, guitar is to instrument just as state is to country. Okay, so on your piece of paper, I'm going to have you write down number 2 because this is your second word relationship. So write down number 2, and then on your piece of paper, I'm going to have you write either cause-effect, if you think that this is a cause-effect, one thing causes another effect, or if you think it's a part-whole relationship, where guitar is a part of an instrument and state is a part of a country. Or you can write down item category relationship, where guitar, which is the item, falls under the category of instrument, and state falls under the category of country. So whichever you think is correct, cause-effect, part whole, or item category is what you'll write on your paper. So you can pause your video and do that as needed. So if you wrote down item category, you are correct. Guitar is an item that falls under the category of instrument, and state is an item that falls under the category of country. All right, next one. Because the cat was frightened, he arched his back and fluffed his tail. So on your piece of paper, I'm going to have you write down the number 3 because this is the third word relationship that we're doing. And by that 3, you're going to write either cause-effect, part whole, or item category, based on what you think that this word relationship is. So I'll let you pause your video and write it down. All right, so if you said that this one is cause-effect, you are correct. We have that keyword because, which immediately clues us into the fact that this could be a cause-effect relationship. Because the cat was frightened, so that's our cause, he arched his back and fluffed his tail, effect. So the cat performed this effect, he arched his back and fluffed his tail because he was frightened, which is our cause. So this is cause-effect. All right, let's try another one. Piano is to instrument just as red is to color. So does this word relationship seem like a cause-effect, part whole, or item category one? So on your piece of paper, I believe this is number 4 for everybody. On your piece of paper, I want you to write down the number 4 and then write which word relationship you think that analogy falls under. Piano is to instrument just as red is to color. All right, so for this one, if you said item category, you are correct. That's because the piano falls under the category of an instrument, and red falls under the category of color because red is a type of color and piano is a type of instrument. That's how we get that one. All right, and next one. He broke his arm. The doctor put it in a cast. Is this one going to be cause effect, part whole, or item category? So on your piece of paper, you can write down the number 5, because this is our 5th word relationship, and then write down either cause effect, part whole, or item category. So you can pause the video and do that. Alrighty, so this one would be cause effect. So he broke his arm, that's our cause, and the doctor put it in a cast, which is the effect. So the doctor put his arm in a cast because he had broken his arm. So that's a cause effect. Okay, next one. Cauliflower is to vegetables, just as lizards are to reptiles. So on your piece of paper, write down the number 6, and then you're going to write either cause effect, part whole, or item category. All right, so that one would be item category. Good job. All right, and guess the word relationship for this one. India is to country, just as German is to language. So on your piece of paper, write down the number 7, and you'll write either cause effect, part whole, or item category. All right, so if you guessed item category, you are correct. India falls under the category of a country, and German falls under the category of language, because there's a whole bunch of other languages besides German, like Spanish, French, English, all that. So it falls under the broader category, the broader picture of language. All right, next one. Because the alarm was not set, we were late for work. So is this a cause effect, a part whole, or an item category? You can write the number 8 on your paper because this is the 8th word relationship, and then write down which word relationship you think that it is. And you can pause the video if needed. So if you said that this is a cause-effect relationship, you are correct. That keyword because immediately clues us in to the fact that this could be a cause-effect relationship. Plus, we have our cause-effect because the alarm was not set, so that's our cause. We were late for work, so that's our effect. We were late for work because the alarm was not set. Awesome. Okay. Next one says, since helium rises, a helium balloon floats. So is this going to be a cause-effect, a part whole, or an item category relationship? And you can pause the video and write it down on your piece of paper. If you said cause-effect, you are correct. Our keyword of since clues us into this. Since helium rises, so kind of like because helium rises, which is our cause, a helium balloon floats. That's going to be our effect. All right, next analogy. Conclusion is to essay, just as dessert is to meal. Conclusion is to essay, just as dessert is to meal. So is this going to be a cause-effect, a part whole, or an item category? And I believe we're on our 10th word relationship. So you can write down a 10 on your piece of paper and then write down one of these, whichever you think that it is. So you can pause the video and do that. Awesome, so let's check our work. So this one is going to be a part-whole relationship. A conclusion is a part of an entire essay. So like for an essay, we have like the introduction, the body of the essay, and our conclusion. So the conclusion is the third part of the essay, so it's a part of the essay. Then we have as dessert is to meal. And so for like a full meal, you might have like your main entree, and then you'll also have like dessert sometimes. And so the whole meal, part of that whole meal is dessert. So that's why dessert is to meal. We wouldn't necessarily say item category for this one because conclusion doesn't necessarily follow under the category of essay, and dessert doesn't necessarily fall under the category of meal because like some meals don't include dessert. So that's why dessert doesn't always fall under the category of meal. That's why it's a part whole. It's kind of like for a whole meal, like an entire meal, dessert is a part of the meal. And like for an entire essay, not like a half finished essay, but the entire essay, you'll have a conclusion. So that's why conclusion is a part of the whole essay. So that's why this word relationship here is a part-whole relationship. Okay, next one. Maria didn't follow the recipe correctly, so the cake did not come out as expected. So on your piece of paper, write down the number 11, and you're going to write either cause effect, part whole, or item category. So you can pause the video and do that. All right, so for this one, it is going to be a cause-effect relationship, and that's because we immediately have that keyword so, because Maria didn't follow the recipe correctly. That's our cause for what's about to happen. And what was about to happen is that the cake did not come out as expected, which is our effect. So the cake did not come out as expected because Maria didn't follow the recipe correctly. That's our cause effect. Okay, so now we're going to do an activity where we complete the analogies. So just a review of the parts of a word analogy. 1: means is to, just like car is to 4 wheels. And then 2 colons in a row can mean as, or just like. So I could say car is to 4 wheels just as bicycle is to 2 wheels. Or I could say car is to 4 wheels as bicycle is to 2 wheels. Or car is to 4 wheels just like bicycles to 2 wheels. And either of those could work. So this double colon can have a few different options. Okay, so we are going to complete some analogies. So I'm going to help you with the first couple of them. Circumference is to circle, just as perimeter is to, then our options are corner, perimeter is to food, perimeter is to square, or perimeter is to math. So let's go through these options one by one. So first, we always have to have this kind of this bigger picture in mind. So in this case, our first part of the analogy is circumference is to circle. So when we're thinking of circumference and circle, well, circumference is the outside part of the circle. So that's a good piece of information to remember. Circumference is the outside part of the circle. Just as perimeter is to, okay, so based on that information, we know that perimeter is going to have to refer to the outside of something because circumference refers to the outside of a circle. So perimeter is going to have to refer to the outside of something. So that's our main hint. So perimeter refers to the outside of corner. Well, that doesn't quite make as much sense because it's not very relevant. Perimeter is to the outside of food. Well, that doesn't make sense. Perimeter is to the outside of square. Well, that makes a little more sense. So maybe we'll keep that as an option. And then perimeter is to math. Well, that also kind of makes sense. So right now it's between square and math. Okay, so circumference is to circle. Notice that circle is a shape. That might be a key detail to remember. So circle's a shape. Okay, so circumference is to circle, just as perimeter is to, we could say square, which is also a shape, or we could say math. Well, since circle is a shape and we want to keep this as consistent as possible, square is also a shape. So circumference is to circle, just perimeter is to square, would make more sense than circumference is to circle as perimeter is to math. Math wouldn't really fit in there. That's why our option is going to be square. So our final answer would read circumference is to circle, just as perimeter is to square. So circumference and perimeter both deal with the outside of a shape, and circle and square are both shapes. So that's how we kind of figured out that analogy. let's try another one. So we'll complete this analogy together as well. Candy is to wrapper, just as lemon is to, and our options are rind, citrus, seeds, and fruit. Okay, so candy is to wrapper. So what do candy and wrapper kind of have in common? What connects them? So a wrapper goes around the candy. The candy wrapper goes around the candy. Just as lemon is to, okay, so something's going to have to go around the lemon. That's kind of like our key thing that we're going to focus on this time. So does the rind go around the lemon? Does the citrus go around the lemon? Do the seeds go around the lemon? Or does the fruit go around the lemon? Well, it definitely seems like rind would go around the lemon because lemon rind. So we would have candy is to wrapper, just as lemon is to rind. So you can see that both of these are similar. They're making a comparison because the candy wrapper is going to wrap around the candy and the lemon rind is going to wrap around the lemon. So that's why the answer is rind. All right. So for this one, we are actually going to complete this analogy. So cat is to meows, just as, and our options are cow is to grazes, animal is to growls, and dog is to barks. So which option do you think best fits? Let's look at them one at a time. So they are all kind of talking about animals, but this is a specific animal. A cat is a specific animal, and it's talking about the sound that it makes. So we know that this one would not work because number 2 is not talking about any specific animal, it just says animal. And we need a specific animal. So our options are going to be either between cow or dog because these are both specific animals. So I've got cat meows. So what do cat and meow have in common? Like what connects them? Well, meowing is the sound that a cat makes. That's going to be our main clue, the sound that the animal makes. So if a cat meows, would cow grazes fit into there? Not really, because grazes is something that a cow does, but it's not a sound that it makes. So let's take a look at our last option. Dog barks. Well, barking is a sound that a dog makes, so that could fit. So we've got cat is to meows, so a cat meows, just as dog is to barks, because a dog barks. So cat is to meows, just as dog barks. So that's going to be our answer. All right. I am going to do one more with you, and then I'll let you do other ones on your own. So I've got icing is to cake, just as frosting is to something. So our answer is bread, cupcakes, flour, and yeast. Okay, so first let's compare icing and cake. What do icing and cake have in common? Well, the icing goes on top of the cake. Okay, so we've got icing is to cake, just as frosting, which will need to go on top of something. That's our main clue, our connecting detail. So frosting is going to go on top of something. So what does frosting go on top of? Well, frosting doesn't really go on top of bread. Frosting could go on top of cupcakes. Frosting could not go on top of flour. And frosting could not go on top of yeast. But frosting could go on top of cupcakes. So that would make the most sense for our analogy. So we've got icing is to cake, because icing goes on top of cake, just as frosting is to cupcakes, because frosting goes on top of cupcakes. So again, our connecting detail, our connecting information was goes on top of, because icing goes on top of cake and frosting goes on top of cupcakes. So that's that analogy. Okay, so now I'm going to let you do this one on your own. So I'll read it to you, and then on your piece of paper, I'm going to have you write down which option you think is best. So ingredient is to recipe, just as kitchen is to either sweep, broom, floor, or house. So on your piece of paper, you're going to write down the word kitchen, and then a colon, which means is to, and then one of those 4 options. So I'm going to let you pause the video, find the connecting detail, so ingredient is to recipe, just as kitchen is to something, and then write down your option. So you can pause the video and do that. Okay, so to check our work, the answer would be house, and I'm going to explain why. So ingredient is to recipe. Okay, so part of a recipe is an ingredient. So ingredient is a part of a recipe. That's our main connecting detail. That's our important one. So we need a part of something. So ingredient is a part of a recipe. And notice that this is actually from our part-whole word relationships, our part-whole analogies. Okay, so ingredient is a part of a recipe, just as kitchen is a part of, well, we can't really say kitchen is a part of sweep, because that wouldn't make sense. And we can't say kitchen is a part of broom, because that also doesn't make a lot of sense. Kitchen is a part of floor. Not quite. Kitchen is a part of a house. That makes sense, because kitchen is like a room in the house. So we would say ingredient is to recipe, just as kitchen is to house, or in other words, ingredient is a part of a recipe, just as kitchen is a part of a house. So we can see that we first found that main connecting detail, which is part of. Ingredient is a part of a recipe, kitchen is part of, and then we filled in the rest, house. That one made the most sense. Kitchen is a part of the house. It's like a room of the house. So that's how we get that. Okay, let's try another one. Complete this analogy. Okay, so 3 is to 180, just as minute is to something. Okay, so you're going to first find the connecting detail. So what connects 3 to 180? Because that's the same thing that's going to connect minute to the option. So again, 3 is to 180, just as minute is to something. And our options are going to be hour, second, millisecond. Milliseconds are really tiny, so it's like 1,000th of a second. And then century, which is 100 years. So again, hour, second, millisecond, century. Millisecond's tiny, century is huge. Okay, so 3 is to 180, so find that connecting detail, just as minute is to something. So you're going to pause this video and write down your answer on a piece of paper. All right, so if you said minute is to hour, you are correct. And the reason that we figured that out is we first looked at the connecting detail. So how does 3 relate to 180? Well, if you're looking at this from a mathematical angle, 3 times 60 is 180. So our connecting factor for this one is going to be times 60. 3 times 60 was 180, just as minute times 60 is going to equal something. So 1 minute times 60 minutes would still equal 60 minutes. And 60 minutes is the same as an hour, so that's why we have an hour. So notice that it goes from small 3 to large 180. That's why second and millisecond would work, because minute to second, that's going from large to small. That's the opposite. And minute to millisecond, that's also going from large to small. So that wouldn't make sense, because we have small to large, 3 to 180. 3 is to 180. 3 times 60 equals 180, just as minute times 60, which is 60 minutes, is the same as an hour. That's another reason why century wouldn't work. Century is 100 years, which is way too huge. Minute to 100 years is way bigger than the times 60. That's why we have hour. Minute times 60 equals 1 hour. So our full analogy reads as 3 is to 180, just as minute is to hour. So again, 3 times 160 equals 180, just as minute times 60 equals 60 minutes, which is the same as an hour. Okay, so just to review, our goal for this lesson was to be able to distinguish among the different types of word relationships, mainly cause-effect, part-whole, and item category. And we also got to complete some analogies. For our vocabulary, we learned that analogy is something that compares one idea, person, or concept to another. So basically an analogy is a comparison. We also learned about the key words to look for in a cause-effect relationship, which are because, since, as a result, and also so. Then we looked at part-whole relationships. Sand is a part of beach, the whole beach, just as water is a part of the whole ocean. There are other things in the ocean, such as sea creatures and other things. That's why water is only a part of the larger ocean. Then we had a look at our item category word relationships. For example, as a guinea pig is falling under the category of mammal, and a lizard is falling under the category of a reptile. So this would read as guinea pig is to mammal, just as lizard is to reptile. So that's our item category relationship. We also reviewed the parts of a word analogy, such as a colon means is to, and double colons means as, or just like. So this would read as car is to 4 wheels, just as bicycle is to 2 wheels. So again, this is an analogy because it's comparing a car to a bicycle. And for our agenda today, we first reviewed our vocabulary, and I gave examples of each analogy. Then we guessed which word relationship it was, either cause effect or part whole or item category. Then we completed some analogies. And so I had a great time at this lesson. I hope that you did as well. And I hope that you keep practicing your analogies, and I will see you later.